We'll do the Mamer Vehechrim Last Mitzrayim, which the Rebbe said that Acharon Shel Pesach in h'tshmit Memtes, and it was printed right after Pesach and Isru Chaga Pesach, and this is the 32nd Maimer in my Maimorim Melukotim in Chele Gimel. This Maimer is a little different, besides the fact that it's probably one of the shortest Maimorim that that we have from the Rebbe. Not an expert in all the Maimorim, but from the Maimorim I learned this is exceptionally short, number one. And number two, it's also the way it's presented, it looks like the Rebbe was trying to bring down Moshiach in this Maimer. He's not getting too deeply involved. He's referencing the Maamar of the Rebbe Maharash and in the Maamar Vehechrim, and but there is no real uh, insight in any of the things, the discussion of the Maamar. He brings down questions, he brings down the different ideas, but the Rebbe doesn't address it. He just brings down from the Maamar. So this is like very unique. But the Rebbe talks about how Acharon Shel Pesach to eat the matzahs and to drink the four cases of wine, how all this is connected and brings down Moshiach, as we'll see in the Maamar. I found this Maamar to be like unusually short and unusually inspiring and not being too difficult to learn, because it's basically one thing that this is about Mashiach and about how we have the opportunity to bring Mashiach now. There needs to be no time span. As the Rebbe will learn that the beginning of the Pasuk, which from Tehillim, also the Pasuk we're quoting here from Yeshaya, that the Yam Mitzrayim, that was Lechatchila, the Yitzias Mitzrayim, but the splitting of the Nahor, the river, will be La'asud Lava with Mashiach. And the Rebbe said there doesn't have to be a time. We can get to it right away from the Pasuk. Let's learn inside. And the Pasuk begins with the Pasuk in Yeshaya, which we read in the Haftorah in Acharon Shel Pesach, Eid HaYoim B'Noiv Lamed, talk about the Yotza Choyter Megezer, the Yishai, the descendant of Yishai. And then the Pasuk continues over there that Vehecherim Havaye es L'shoin Yam Mitzrayim. And Hashem will dry out the tongue of the Egyptian sea. The Egyptian sea had a tongue, as area where it goes. So Hashem will dry out. So here it talks about the sea of Egypt. And then the pasuk continues, "Vehenif yodei al hanohar," and Havaya will raise his hand over the river. Now this is talking already about the Euphrates River. The river, there's the Yam, and this is the Nor. So Hashem will lift his hand over the river, ba'ayim rachai, with the fury of his spirit, the goimer, and he will smite it into seven uh, passageways, etc., as the Pasuk talks about over there. So you have two things over here. You have first drying out the sea of Mitzrayim, the Lishon Yam Mitzrayim, and then we have also raising his hands and splitting basically the river by Yom Ruchai with the fury of his spirit. Umazbaer was Admur Maharash. So the Rebbe Maharash explains about this pasuk, who the Rebbe refers to as Melechatchila Riber, the one who the Rebbe, whose attribute to him the going lechatchila over, as the Rebbe would always talk about the fact that the Rebbe Marash says that you go over and you don't start to go lower, and then if you can't go at the top, but you go Chatchila Riber, beginning. So he explains Barucho Behemshech Vehechrim at length in the Maimorim that are the Hemshech of Vehechrim, the same pasuk. So what does the Rebbe Marash explain? As l'shoin yam Mitzrayim. In addition, that in the future the Eibishter will take place, that he will dry out the tongue of the Sea of Egypt, which that is nothing new. That's Dugmas Kriyas Yamsuf Shahoiso Beitzias Mitzrayim. That's similar to the splitting of the Red Sea that took place, or the Sea of Reeds, that took place when they left Egypt. So there was already, there will be again, Abish that would split the Sea of Egypt when for the Yidden to go up to Eretz Yisrael. But in addition to that, he will also raise his hand over the river. Besides splitting the sea, he will also raise his hand over the river and split the river as well. So the Rebbe Marash explains that the Bekiyas Hanor, Hilamayla Yoser mi Bekiyas Hayam. Splitting of the river is a higher level than splitting of the sea. Both of when you split, that represents a tremendous revelation, the splitting of the sea. But splitting of the river is a higher level than splitting of the splitting the sea. Kimavur Shom Barucha has explained over there at length. The Rebbe does not go into the explanation over there at all. The Rebbe just brings down over there that in the Hemshech of Vehechrim, and also from Lukut Torah, over there is explained. The Rebbe doesn't go into the details over here, but the Rebbe just tells us that there's two levels. There's a splitting of the sea, and there's a higher level of splitting of the river. And the main novelty of the future to come is then is going to be the splitting of the river. Because splitting of the sea already took place by Yitzias Mitzrayim. Here there's going to be a whole new splitting, not the sea, the splitting of a river. And the Rebbe brings down now a pasuk from Tehillim. In the Tehillim it says, it says in the pasuk, Hafach Yom La Yabosha. He turned, talking about the greatness of Hashem, that Hashem turned the sea into dry land. And then the pasuk says of the future, Benor Yavru Beragel, that in the river they will go by foot. They're not going to pass the river by boats, other means, they'll go by foot because the river is going to be split for them. So the pasuk, when it talks about the sea, it says Hofach, he split in the past, which is referencing the time when the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, when they used to split the sea for them. And then Banori Avru Beragel in the future will also split the river and they will go through by foot. Hofach Yom Layabosho Loshen Ovar. That's a language of the past. The Koyal Kriyas Yamsuv Shahoiso Ba'Geula Ditzis Mitzrayim. That refers to the time of splitting of the sea, which was in the redemption of Yitzis Mitzrayim. So this already happened. This was already before. And then the pasuk says, "Banor Yavru Beregel," that in the river they will go through by foot, which means the river will split as well. Loshen Osi, that's the language of the foot. They will go by through the river by foot. That's in the future. The Koyal Bekiyas Hanor Shatiya Begulos Hasida, that refers to the splitting of the river that's going to be in the future redemption. And since this already happened, so in our pasuk, when we talk about both, that Vehechrim L'shon Yam Mitzrayim, the sea will be split, and also the river. The main chiddush is the river because the sea has already been split. Ubenohor Yavru Berogel. So when this posik said no Yavregel, Zehu Iker HaChidush Sheyibegula, see that this is the main chiddush that will be in the future redemption, because that's the first time that the sea, the river was split. Up till now, it was the sea that was split. And therefore, within the two inyonim of the pasuk, the main thing is in the pasuk v'hechrim l'shen yam Mitzrayim. The main thing is the second part of v'heinif yom ala yonor b'ayim rocha. So, why do we have to bring down both inyonim? L'chayre would seem we should just bring down the v'heinif yoda anor, since that is the main thing. So that should be l'chayra, the thing that should be brought down. The Rebbe explains now, because the pasuk brings them together to tell you that there can be immediately after the splitting of the sea can also be the splitting of the river, and we don't have to take any time in between, which means we can go to the Geula right away. There's no time restriction to take place in between. Basically, so the Rebbe says we can say that the Pasuk says that the Eberster will dry out the sea of Mitzrayim. L'shon Yam Mitzrayim, Mamshich Lozeh. So he continues to this. V'tekiv, and immediately, without it. If Yom al the Yodei al Nor Gomer, he will raise his hand over this river. Hula Hoyres, that is to teach us Shemekriyas Yamsu V'inyone, that from the splitting of the sea and its idea, whatever the greatness that took place at Kriyas Yamsuf. So the splitting, the actual splitting, and the ideas associated with the splitting of the sea, that will be in the redemption of the exodus of Egypt. We have the ability to come immediately, without any interruption. There's no, the pasuk says we split the sea, but immediately to raising his hand over the river that's going to be in the future. We can come to it immediately. So b'meila, that's what the pasuk says it that way. And the Rebbe is pushing this further, that especially when we are in Acharon Shel Pesach, we can get to the point of Hecharim, to the level of Neinif Yodei, of the Geula Hasida immediately. We don't have to wait. There's no reason to wait. Ubefrat be'Acharon Shel Pesach, especially when we talk about Acharon Shel Pesach, Sheboy Emrim Haftoiro be'inyan Geulas Hasida. When we say the Haftorah about this future redemption, this is the Haftorah of Hecharim, then Vehechrim Sudas Moshiach, and we eat the meal of Moshiach. So we can get to Moshiach right away. V'zeh bo behemshech l'shvi shel Pesach, and Acharon Shel Pesach comes as a follow-up, as a continuation to the seventh day of Pesach, which is Kriyas Yamsuf. So you have Shvi Shel Pesach, Kriyas Yamsuf, Vehechrim Shon Yam Mitzrayim, and then we come to the future. V'heinif Yodei B'ayim Rucha Alanor. So days and Nase Oid Yoser HaChibur. This also brings about even more the connection, the Kriyas Yamsuf Im Hagilu the Geula Hasido, the connection of Kriyas Yamsuf with the revelation of the future redemption. Meaning, it can happen. It needs to be brought right very close. Now, the Rebbe says this connection of bringing Moshiach now, immediately, right after Kriyas Yamsuf, that the Pasuk connects them, is something which each and every one of us is responsibility to do, because the Torah was given to each of the Jewish people, so we all have to bring about the hemshech of Kriyas Yamsuf to Nor Berogel, to the Zman of Mashiach. Mekiv on Shev Smichu Zu, Hi Chelik Metoira. Since this juxtaposing of bringing close the Kriyas Yamsuf with the Henifyote, the Nor, the Nor, the Osid, Hi Chelik Metoira, it's a part of Torah. And since the Torah is Sheyirusha L'Kol Echad V'Echad Miyisrael, it's an inheritance for each and every one of the Jewish people, like we say in the Pasuk. Torah tziva lanu Moshe moirasha kilas Yaakov. The Torah that Moshe commanded us is an inheritance for the entire community of Jacob. So it means every year, this is a part of Torah, this Pasuk, meaning that it belongs to everybody. Yesh noya koyach l'kol echad v'echad miYisrael. There is the power to each and every one of the Jewish people, anoshim, noshim, mitaf, men, women, and children, loving mikriyas yamsuf, to come from the splitting of the sea from Shvi Shel Pesach, take it from Miyad Mamash L'Gula Sida, immediately and right away, actually right away, to the future redemption. The loy iku vafilu kerev ayin, without delay, even like the blink of an eye. Rebbe says further, there's a very interesting prayer that we do in the Psichas Ha'orin on Yom Tov. We say the Yiratzin over there. And each person saying the Yiratzin when they open the Torah before Kriyas HaTorah talks about them meriting what this pasuk says. V'nachal of Ruach Hashem, which literally talks about Mashiach. But we're all saying it. And we just said it when they took out the Torah on Acharon Shel Pesach and on before Ashur Shel Pesach. This tells us how much each person has that connection to Mashiach, that we are able to bring Mashiach down, so that there should be right away the splitting of the river. This, that it is within the power of each and every one of the Jewish people. To immediately come to the revelation, the Geula Hasidah, to the future redemption. Mudgash Gam, this is also emphasized by Masha Kosov, Behav Torah the Acharon Shel Pesach, that which is written in the Haftorah of Acharon Shel Pesach. V'nocha olav ruach havayi v'goymer. Upon him, upon Moshiach, will rest the spirit of Hashem. That's also in our Haftorah, Acharon Shel Pesach, the Achrim, and the same Haftorah. So what's the Pashto Pshat? V'nocha olav. Who's olav? And everyone wants to connect it that really, even though it's talking about Mashiach, but it's really a responsibility. Every year, the Torah Tzivilon Moshe Marosh Kilas Yaakov, we all can do it. It says, "V'nochalav ruach havai v'goymer," the all of Koyi al Mashiach. On him, who's on him? That's Mashiach. On Mashiach, there will rest the Spirit of God. Hashem's Spirit will rest. How do we know that? Because the pasuk says, "V'yotza choyter migeza yishai goymer," that a sprout from the stem of Yishai, which is Mashiach. Yishai, the father of David, and from David's children, David Melech, Malka Mashiach. That's going to be a sprout. The Melech HaMashiach comes from there. And he's going to have the Spirit of Hashem on him. Ruach Hashem is the V'yotzol L'chayter Megeza Yishai. That's Melech HaMashiach. And yet, Tiknu, the rabbis, the sages, instituted Shekol Echad Misrael Yemer B'Yom Tov, that each individual of the Jewish people says on Yom Tov. During the prayer we do when we open the ark, What do we say over there? A fascinating prayer. V'yiskayim banu mikra shakosu. Let it be fulfilled in us, the verse that it says, "V'nochol of ruach Hashem." On him will rest the spirits of Hashem. And we're asking Hashem that by us shall be fulfilled what it says about Moshiach, to rest upon him the spirit of Hashem. Hainu, what it means is Shevakol Echad Mi Yisrael, that by each one of the Yidden, B'tor Prat, as an individual, not asking to Klal Yisrael. We're saying Yiskayim Bonu by us, but he's saying over there by the Psichasarim for himself. Each individual is asking that. Should be the revelation, Mashiach's revelation of Ruach Hashem. Not just a revelation, such a powerful, great revelation that Spirit of Hashem will rest in him. With all the details that are in these verses. Also the earlier theme that raised his hand over the river and splitting it, the Melech HaMashiach. We all are obligated. We all can do it. We don't have to wait. It's ready now. And therefore, here you can see the Rebbe is pushing and pulling Moshiach to come. Gimel. This matter only hinges in our actions and our service. The idea we start by doing mitzvahs properly, we get our own redemption, and then through our own redemption, we merit redemption of Klal Yisrael. By doing the mitzvah properly, that brings about redemption. That's the individual redemption of the one who fulfills the mitzvah. If you do the mitzvah properly, you become a free person. You experience freedom. As we'll see in the Pasuk of Pod B'Sholem that the Rebbe brings down, you are redeemed B'Sholem. You become redeemed. When you do a mitzvah kedeboyi properly, nasa geula, that brings about redemption. Gula protis shel mekayim mitzvah. That's the individual, the personal redemption of the one who fulfills the mitzvah. That he finds himself in a condition of true freedom. You're free. Move on Maamar as understood from what was explained in the Geras HaKodesh, in the Siman Daled, in explaining the Pasuk of Pod B'Sholem Nafshi, that by doing the mitzvah properly, you gain the level of freedom. Pod B'Sholem. The Rebbe wants to say now that experience is a lasting experience, even though he does the mitzvah at one moment. Just like the mitzvah itself is explained in Tanya is everlasting because above is higher than time, and that union you create with the mitzvah is a lasting impact. The same thing is the redemption that you accomplish by doing the mitzvah properly is a continuous redemption. Even after you finish doing the mitzvah, it's a lasting redemption. Yes, if we can add Shagula Protis, Pod B'Sholem Nafshi, the individual personal redemption. Pod B'Sholem Nafshi, my soul, it's the person himself. Shenasi Salidei Ki Mitzvah Kideboyi, which takes place when you do the mitzvah properly. It's not just when he's observing the mitzvah, but it extends later on. Similar to what's explained in Tanya, Tanya explains that union. We say l'shem yichud kutshabrichu. We say before Baruch Shamar. A lot of people say l'shem yichud before every mitzvah because every mitzvah creates a connection of kutshabrichu shchinte, zoh and malchus, etc. So when is that yichud? When is that yichud? So I do mitzvah once. I'll never explain, but the yichud that you make up with that one mitzvah is a lasting yichud above. Sheyichud ze beinyan hayichud shenas lekiyum mitzvah. That yichud that takes place through the observance of mitzvah. Sheyichud ze lamailo hu nitzchi loylam voed. It's eternal forever, and because it's an eternal yichud, shezeh hayichud lamailo. Therefore, this eternal yichud above. Poyil gam alodim lamata, so it impacts the person below. So doing a mitzvah one time has its effect on the person below because it's a continuous above. The mitzvah continues, that yichud continues. But the same thing is true with the redemption. The pod of b'sholem nafshi. Same thing is also in the matter of pod of nafshi shenas al yidei ki mitzvah, which becomes through the doing of the mitzvah. Sho'inyan nitzchi lemailo v'gam lemato. That becomes an eternal matter above, but also below. That redemption that you experience through doing the mitzvah once is a continuous redemption. Balderech Mamer Razal. This is similar to this saying of our sages. Kol ha'osek b'Torah. Anybody who occupies in Torah accomplishes both, above and below. Meisim shalom b'pamalia shel maila, b'pamalia shel mata. He makes a peace in the heavenly academy and the academy below. So you see, you impact both. So the nitzchi of the podah b'sholom, you accomplish it both above and below, just like Oisik B'Torah is above and below. What does it mean? That personal redemption that you create through the observance of the mitzvah, that extends and it impacts during the entire lifetime. In your day-to-day life. So that's a freedom that you created through doing your own mitzvah, but it's something which impacts your day-to-day life for the rest of your life. So that's the beginning. This is a personal gula. From this boim gam legula haklolis. From there we come also to the general gula. V'hoiso la'Hashem hamlucham. General gula, the whole world will be redeemed. Hashem will have the government, the ruling over the world. In every entity, the entire entity of all, in the worlds above and below, there will be Lashem Hamlucha everywhere. So this is the idea of Geula that we accomplish through our personal Geula first, which brings us to the general Geula. And this is all telling us that, especially in Acharon Shel Pesach, when we read this, and there's that the inyonim of Mitzrayim and to the inyonim of Lost Lavi can come immediately. There's no time needed. And the Rebbe says, and more, furthermore, besides the Rebbe said, we just read this in the Haftorah, it's Shvi Shel Pesach and Acharon Shel Pesach. And the Rebbe is talking about specifically when we are now celebrating the Sudas Moshiach, in which we're eating the Sudas Moshiach, we're drinking the 4 cups. So, but before we're talking about the Geula of doing a mitzvah kidduboy, but that's doing general mitzvahs. We have specific mitzvahs or traditions that we do on Acharon Shel Pesach, which is a unique opportunity for Moshiach, special. Dalet b'nei noisef al zeh shakol ha'inyanim de Torah mitzvos maseinu v'avedaseinu. In addition to the fact that all matters of Torah mitzvahs, which is our work and our service, they bring close and they bring us to the future redemption. Yesh sgula miyuchedes binyonim elu. There is a very special omen in those matters hashayochim bigolu yosel Mashiach, which are more revealed, connected to Mashiach. There's a more uh, impetus, a more probability, more stronger to bring is actually about. Umehem amongst them is Achila Sudas Mashiach ba'Acharon Shel Pesach, to eat the Mashiach Suda on the last day of Pesach, Ushti Dalet Kaisus, and drinking of the 4 Kais Suda Zu during the meal of Acharon Shel Pesach. The Kemoy Shedalet HaKaisus. So the Rebbe is concentrating on the 4 cups that have to do especially with an act that we're doing related to the Geula, just like the 4 cups the Pesach that are in the first nights of Pesach. And they correspond to the 4 languages that Hashem used for the redemption that we find when the Eibishter told them about the Geula Mitzrayim, Hagula di Yitzias Mitzrayim, which is the redemption of Yitzias Mitzrayim. Al derech zeh. Similarly, Hugam Badalat Koised the Sudas Mashiach ba'Acharon Shel Pesach. Similarly, is the 4 cups of Mashiach Suda on the last day of Pesach. Shehem Shayochim Legula Hasida. They have a connection to the future redemption. The cups that we're drinking, the 4 cups on the Seder, that has to do the first days of Pesach. That has to do with the Geula of Yitzias Mitzrayim. The 4 cups we're drinking at the Suda of Acharon Shel Pesach have to do with the Geula Asida. What's the number 4? So the Rebbe explains. The explanation is Api Habiurim Ba'Shaychas the Geula Asida Dal Kois, based on the explanations to connect the future redemption to the 4 cups. The Daled L'Shon Shel Agula de L'Osid Lovi, to the 4 languages of the Geula of the future to come. The Rebbe explains it in the Arichas and the Maimorim, the Rebbe references, but the Rebbe himself doesn't go into give us the details. He says that the 4 languages about the Geula Hasida is referenced with the 4 cups that we drink in Acharon Shel Pesach. And the Rebbe brings out another point. Geula Hasida the future redemption is going to be from the 4 corners of the world. 4 corners of the world fit with the 4 cups. 4 corners is 4 cups. And the Rebbe has a lengthy ha'ore in 18, in which the Rebbe also explains that the 2 mems, there is a closed mem and there is an open mem. A regular mem and a mem, a shlos mem, a mem sophis. The mem sophis represents Moshiach, represents the future redemption. And that's why he said, Lemar Hamisra, even though it's the middle of the word, that mem is a shlos mem, is like a closed mem. And the Rebbe brings down that an open mem has an open mem. If you're facing Mizrach, the letter is facing Mizrach, the open is to the north. It says Mitzofen to Pasacharo. Basically, the Eibishter created the world that it's open on 3 sides, Lachsadra Doima, and the 4th side is not closed, and that's the mem, and that means that possibility to get into the mem, into the world, through that opening from the north, Mitzvot to Pesach Hara, and the Mem closed, meaning there's going to be no possibility for anybody to come in. So this is the future when the world is going to be closed from all four sides. And that 4 cups that we're drinking is hinting to this idea. This is what Rebbe says in the to that closed mem that's going to be closed from all four sides. That's what the Rebbe mentioned. In any event, this is all the number 4. And the Rebbe brings out another point, that the fact that the 4 is equal to the 4th of the first day and the 4th of the last day, meaning that we can go right away. They're connected. We don't have to wait. We can come immediately to Gula Hasidah. Gula Yesh Lahoisim, the Rebbe says, perhaps we can add the fact that in Mashiach Suda is the same number of cups. The Pesach, that's in the first days of Pesach. Well, the Ramez is to hint us Israel. Same cups, because it hints to us that it's in the power of each one of the Yidden. Lavoi miyad ma'agula the Yitzias Mitzrayim. We can come right away from the redemption of Exodus of Mitzrayim. Dalad HaKoisas, the Leilas HaRishonim, the Pesach, the 4 cups. You're not going to need any more cups. Legula Hasid, the same 4 cups. Dalad HaKoisas, the Acharon Shel Pesach, those 4 cups of Acharon Shel Pesach. 4, meaning, well, if you needed more cups on the Gula Asida, you can say maybe it needs to take time till you get to the other cups. But here the point is that it's the same 4 cups. So you can come right away from the 4 cups of the first nights to the Gula Asida, Dalad HaKoises, the Acharon Shel Pesach. Gula bepashtus, a literally redemption. Lamata Masoret Tvachim, below 10 Tvachim, meaning experience. Spirituality sometimes stays Rishus above, but Soret Tvachim means in this world. Ubefrat, especially the Rebbe says, Shemaseinu v'avidesenu, our work and our service, our labor, Achshav, Hem kinanas al gabe anok, we're like a midget on top of a giant, which means we don't have to do the whole work. We're just standing on the shoulders of the giants. Kivim shem boim, since they're coming la'achrei ubehemshach, after and as a follow-up, l'maisei, to the actions, va'avodas, and the work, the service of Rabbi Seinu Nisienu, our Rebbes, our leaders. And the Rebbe enumerates all the Rebbes. Admur HaZokin, the Alter Rebbe, Admur HaMtzoi, the Mittler Rebbe, Admur HaTzamach Tzedek, the Rebbe, the Tzamach Tzedek, Admur HaMaharash, the Rebbe Maharash, and Admur Nishmos Eiden, the Rebbe Nishmos Eiden, the Rebbe Rashab, the Koit Veitushos Merichom Admur, and the Friedrich Rebbe. Hare Bevadai, Bevadai, 2 times Bevadai, for sure, for sure. Shebekoyach shal ma'aseinu v'avidesenu, that it's in the power of our actions and our service. Koyle lachila sudas Moshiach, which includes the eating Mashiach Suda, Ushtiyas Dalet Koises Ba'achron Shel Pesach, and drinking the 4 cups in Achron Shel Pesach, Lahovis HaGeula Miyad Keherafayim Mamish, to bring the Geula immediately, immediately. And the Rebbe added, says in the note of here at the Fabrengen, with the Rebbe means for sure each one should make sure to drink all the 4 cups. And even those who are not sure if they drank all the 4 cups. So the Rebbe says, in other words, they may have drank it, but maybe they didn't think about this should lead us to Mashiach. The Rebbe says they should make it up. Because drinking of the cup needs to be sure. That's the way to bring the Gula Hasidah. So the Rebbe said that in the Maamar as well, that they should make sure to drink the cups with this kavanah. And that will bring down the Geula Keherafayim like the blink of an eye. Hey, B'yirotzin, and the Rebbe plays maybe the will, prays that this should be the will of Hashem, Shekol Zeyi Begilu Mamish. This should be all this openly, mamash, ba'ofen in a way, shekol echad ma'ara be'etzboi, that everyone can show with his finger, v'omer, zeh, this is it. Bedugmas Sudas Mashiach. This is so literally because we're talking about a meal of Mashiach. Shemarim be'etzba hamatzah v'yayin. You can show which point with your finger. This is the matzah, this is the wine. Ubepnimius, and it also goes into an internal because you internalize the wine and the matzah become part of your body. Bedugmas hamatzah v'hakoisus. The Sudas Mashiach, similar to the matzah and the cups of the Mashiach Suda. Shenasim damu basar kipsore, that become blood and flesh like your flesh, and with joy and gladness of hearts, take it from a yad mamish, and immediately and right away, actually, he didn't hold them back even like the blink of an eye. So again, this is the Maamar, like very unique. Seems mamish the Rebbe was urging and trying to get everybody to have the right kavanas with the Sudas Mashiach to mamish bring down Mashiach Suda. I was trying to find in the Yomanim, maybe we'll say this was not too long after the passing of the Rebbe's brother-in-law of the Rashag on Vav Tishrei, Vav Oder in Toshmem Tes, and a year after the Rebbetzin passed away, and the Rebbe's energy and efforts were focused, and like I said, there was not that much from the Maamar in the explanations, but really just to bring down Moshiach. Anyways, that's for whatever it's worth.